This week on Government Matters.
The unacceptable problems that we've seen, like long wait times and some veterans not getting the timely care that they need, is a challenge for all of us.
Officials say electronic records are key to improving veteran care. We track the path ahead.
Is the head of DHS qualified or authorized to command Cyber Command to unleash cyber offensive attacks against China or Russia?
The Defense Department has a cyber strategy on the books, but who's in charge when the lights go out?
We think it's important that these changes be institutionalized in law.
It's a watershed moment for shared services. Public and private sector supporters hope a new plan can bridge administrations. Government Matters starts right now.
From ABC 7 and News Channel 8, this is Government Matters.
To our viewers around the world on the American Forces Network and here in the nation's capital, thanks for joining us. Government is the engine that runs this city. That's why Government Matters. Every week we'll bring you the top headlines in tech, security, and management. I'm your host, Morris Jones. This year, the Department of Veterans Affairs made significant progress on entrenched problems like homelessness and the disability claims backlog. But President Obama says there's more work ahead. Diane Cho reports from Veterans Day at Arlington National Cemetery.
Laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. President Obama took part in an annual ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery to honor the men and women who have served in uniform.
On these sacred grounds, where generations of heroes have come to rest, we remember all those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. We're in the midst of a new wave of American veterans. In recent years, more than 1 million of our men and women in uniform, many of them veterans of Afghanistan and Iraq, have completed their military service and returned to civilian life.
Forward! March!
Our tributes today will ring hollow if we do not ensure that our veterans receive the care that you have earned and that you deserve.
President Obama says despite improvements in funding for the Department of Veterans Affairs and a reduction to the backlog of disability claims, there's still plenty of work to do. The 2014 VA scandal over long wait times for medical care still casts a shadow over the entire agency.
The unacceptable problems that we've seen, like long wait times and some veterans not getting the timely care that they need, is a challenge for all of us if we are to match our words with deeds.
The president stressed he's not satisfied, and VA Secretary Robert McDonald isn't either.
We are going to keep investing in the facilities and the physicians and the staff to make sure that our veterans get the care that you need when you need it. That is our obligation, and we are not going to let up.
Every year, he says at least 200,000 service members return to civilian life. Last year, the unemployment rate for all veterans was 5.3%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Today, he says that number is on its way down. The president asked employers to continue the trend by hiring even more veterans.
If you want to get the job done, hire a vet. If you're a business that needs team players who know how to lead and execute an idea, hire a vet. Every sector, every industry, every community can benefit from the incredible talents of our veterans. They're ready to serve, and they'll make you proud.
For Government Matters, I'm Diane Cho.
In Tech Matters, a new CIO and real talk about interoperability at the Department of Veterans Affairs. This month, VA Secretary Robert McDonald said electronic health records are key to improving medical care for our nation's veterans. The ultimate goal, move the VA and Department of Defense to a single system. So far, it's been a pretty rocky road. For more, I'm joined by Adam Mazmanian, Executive Editor at FCW. Adam, let's start with a state of the state. The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee held a contentious hearing on October 27th. What did we learn about the effort to share health data?
Well, we learn it's going very slowly and that it's quite hard to do. The VA and the Department of Defense separately maintain large systems that separately serve populations of millions of people, cost billions of dollars to administer, and sharing data between them is not as easy as members of Congress would like it to be. The two agencies put together a program to see if they could combine their systems. They spent about $560 million over the course of 3 years and decided that for the time being they still have to go their own way. And for members of Congress, they see that kind of apparent waste and inactivity, and they don't take it well. So it was a tough hearing for a lot of the witnesses.
And how will the multi-billion-dollar contract awarded to Cerner impact this discussion?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, Cerner is a private company that won a big award, as you said, from the Department of Defense to build a commercial, off-the-shelf health record system that covered the 9.5 million beneficiaries in the military's health system. They are a private system. They are already pretty much state-of-the-art in terms of being able to share data or interoperate with other existing systems. And so the DoD is hoping to get to full interoperability with private systems, eventually with the VA system, that way. But some members of Congress still don't like it. I don't know that they'll be able to influence the process very much, but what you heard from a lot of the members of the committee, especially on the VA side, was that they would really like to walk back this procurement. They still want a single system for both agencies.
Now, meanwhile, the CIO office at the Department of Veterans Affairs looks very different today. Laverne Council is in, Steph Warren and Stan Lowe are out. Tell us more.
Well, Laverne Council was nominated by President Obama to fill the job of Assistant Secretary and CIO at Veterans Affairs. She's the only Senate-confirmed CIO in the entire government. And what she's been doing is she took over for a department that was troubled, has well-known morale problems, and has started, I guess you'd call it cleaning house. A lot of the top executives that were there before are now gone, and she's looking to reorganize the offices, putting program managers front and center, building new offices to take care of some of the big, knotty problems facing the agency. And one of the big ones in tech is modernizing their own health record system, VISTA, an open source record that was developed independently by the Department of Veterans Affairs and continues to be an issue about what its long-term prospects are.
Now, your colleague at FCW, Sean Lingus, writes that McDonnell has made modernizing VA's IT a key piece of his plan to move the agency past scandal. That's a very broad goal, but what needs to happen to make it a reality?
Well, that's a big question. I think a few little things that you'll see that will show if he's succeeding or not is whether the agency can put in place new scheduling software. You'll recall the scandal that occurred when it turned out at different medical centers were sort of cooking the books, if you will, and marking patients as having been seen or having been put off waiting lists when in fact they had not been seen. So that's going to be a big issue. Another big issue that McDonnell wants to achieve is having a single front door for all veterans, a kind of front door for the VA for them to access health records and any other issue, grants, education benefits, GI Bill, and go to one place instead of the 17 or 18 or 19 or more websites that the VA maintains for beneficiaries to claim benefits.
It's a daunting task. We wish the VA all the best. Adam Mazmanian, Executive Editor at FCW. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Morris.
Let's take a look now at names making news. The Department of Veterans Affairs filled one top job this week. FCW reports Brian Burns will become their Chief Information Security Officer. He's a longtime IT executive and VA insider. President Obama nominated Acting Director of the Office of Personnel Management, Beth Cobert, to take the job full-time. If approved by the Senate, she'll replace Catherine Archuleta, who resigned after that massive data breach. Defense Secretary Ash Carter fired his top military aide, Lieutenant General Ron Lewis, citing allegations of misconduct. Officials declined to offer additional details pending the results of a full investigation. We'll turn to security straight ahead on Government Matters. The Department of Defense and Homeland Security must be prepared for what some call a cyber Pearl Harbor. But who exactly is in charge when the lights go out? Stay with us. In Security Matters, the worst-case cyber scenario. For years, top defense officials in Hollywood have envisioned a massive cyber attack on critical infrastructure. It could shutter financial institutions, collapse the power grid, freeze mass transit, and poison the water supply. An attack like that would take incredible coordination. Some consider it unlikely, but a new question has emerged. Is our nation prepared for a cyber Pearl Harbor? Joining me with some answers is Patrick Tucker, technology editor for Defense One. Well, Patrick, 20 years ago, this might have been described as a crackpot theory. Today, it's a relatively mainstream concern. Defense Department Chief Information Officer Terry Halverson addressed the issue just last month at a breakfast hosted by the Christian Science Monitor.
Is there the potential for a cyber Pearl Harbor? Probably. I think it will depend on what scale of engagement you're going about. In kind of the normal phase zero, yeah, I think there will be persistent cyber probing. There'll be persistent testing of cyber threat technology. I think that is something we're going to live with. I don't think, again, that should surprise us.
There's been a lot of talk about that term, Patrick, cyber Pearl Harbor. Is it fear-mongering?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Certain intelligence officials, Director of Intelligence James Clapper, Cyber Command Commander Michael Rogers, and others have said that large nation-state peer nations like China or Russia possibly have the capability to launch an attack like that, where they cripple some aspect of infrastructure, potentially resulting in loss of life. At the same time, others have said that that sort of attack is unlikely as a first attack, as a kind of surprise attack in a Pearl Harbor sense, that a major cyber attack on civilian infrastructure is more likely to be the result of ongoing hostilities between U.S. and China. So we would already be in a war before you saw something like this. This is sort of a Peter Singer argument, if you will. Meanwhile, some, such as former NSA head Keith Alexander, have come up with the alternative scenario. They say that it's most likely to be a first attack and it's going to be a surprise. Now, Keith Alexander, since retiring from the NSA, has also started a cybersecurity film, vending solutions to these sorts of problems. So there are a lot of people with a lot of software to sell to fix this. Exactly how likely it is, that's a very different question, and it's sort of impossible to nail down.
Not only has it become practical warfare, it becomes psychological warfare. Can you imagine not being able to use your cell phone, get to your bank account? I mean, the ideas are just boggling. Now, the Department of Defense has a cyber strategy in place for any attack of significant consequence. Tell us more.
In April of this year, the Department of Defense published a sort of grand cyber strategy, and it outlines DoD's role in protecting its own networks, in giving backup to troops that are conducting cyber operations. The third goal is to provide backup in the event of a major a cyber attack of significant consequence on U.S. infrastructure, and this is something that DoD has said that's their job to do. But there are some questions, policy questions, about who exactly does what. It's an incredibly difficult and complex knot to unravel.
Now, let me drill down to that, because that's my next question. Let's talk about if the power goes out. Who's in charge? DoD, DHS, or a combination of the two?
Technically, DHS takes the lead. DoD provides backup. But then when you look at something like cyber, there are a lot of other questions that have to be asked in concert with that. And this is why Lieutenant General James McLaughlin, who is the Deputy Commander of Cyber Command, has said that the realization of the third goal in the cyber strategy, exactly how to provide that backup to civilian authorities, that is the one that they've made the least amount of progress on. They are trying. They do a lot of war games involving DHS and other agency actors where they sketch out exactly what would happen. But that's a little bit different from having a clear chain of command. There's nothing formally written down as a doctrine that says in the event of this happening, here's exactly who does what. You have this potential for somebody like Jay Johnson, the head of DHS, to be in charge of somebody like Admiral Michael Rogers, the head of Cyber Command. And the question becomes, is the head of DHS qualified or authorized to command Cyber Command to unleash cyber offensive attacks against China or Russia, shut down power there, perhaps cost civilian life over there? So these are a lot of political policy questions that, despite a lot of hard work on the part of all the parties involved, still have to be answered.
Well, true. And you're fighting with guns, or you're fighting with bits and bytes. So what's the answer here, Patrick? New legislation, a simple rebranding, or major structural changes to DOD and DHS?
More work, more rehearsing of what actually happens is probably in order. Probably the construction of some sort of formal document that clearly outlines exactly who is in charge of what, delineates what a cyber offensive capability is and who gets to call for it. I think that would probably be a great first step in untangling some of this mess.
Patrick Tucker, technology editor for Defense One. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks.
We'll turn from security to management straight ahead on Government Matters. A group of public and private sector leaders want to make shared services a top priority as one administration winds down and another takes over. We talk momentum next. In Management Matters, a watershed moment for shared services. Last month, top officials from the Obama administration and industry met at the Partnership for Public Service. Their goal was to improve the implementation of shared services across government. Joining me with the latest is John Marshall, founder and CEO of the Shared Services Leadership Coalition. John, the term shared services will strike most of our viewers as pretty vague. What exactly does it mean, and how do shared services apply to government?
It's a business model for how you manage typically back office functions like human resources and financial management, acquisition, and IT that are common to a large number of organizations. In the government, every agency practically has its own HR shop, its own financial management shop. But the idea is, with today's technology, not every agency needs to have its own. So you can share those resources. You can consolidate and skinny down the back office into a smaller number of shared service organizations which serve multiple agencies with common standardized services and save lots and lots of money.
Now, earlier I mentioned a meeting at the Partnership for Public Service. Dave Mader from the Office of Management and Budget rolled out a big plan for shared services. What does that plan spell out? Give us the basics.
The plan is a new governance structure. In the past, shared services, it's been around for a long time, and every administration since the Reagan years has embraced it in one way or another. And the way it's managed has changed from one administration to another. So Dave is trying to institutionalize some governance capabilities in the Office of Management and Budget and GSA to make more standard or more common or to harmonize the way different business lines of shared services are managed across the government. The way the services are acquired, the way standards are set and measured, performance is measured, and those kinds of basic policy setting and implementation oversight functions.
Now, John, this issue has momentum in large part because agency budgets are tight. How much money can shared services save government? Where do those savings go?
The Partnership for Public Service had a shared services roundtable last year that reported out almost $50 billion in potential savings from that consolidation across common back office functions. And what happens with the savings, of course, depends on how you keep score and how you realize them. It requires some tough decisions to consolidate organizations down. There are savings in IT and savings in labor. And if they're saved, some of that could go to deficit reduction, some could go to mission enhancement. The Leadership Coalition thinks some of that ought to go as incentives back to agencies to take the plunge and move forward in shared services, because it's not something that agencies are generally incented to want to do by themselves.
Now, you wrote about this issue in a recent op-ed. I'd like to read an excerpt. In the past, shared services have been managed in an ad hoc program management structures that change from one administration to another. Frequent changes have prevented critical government's capabilities from taking root, and implementation efforts have lagged and wandered. Now, John, it's selection season. A new administration will take over about 14 months from now. That means new priorities and a new agenda. How can our elected leaders make certain that shared services doesn't fall through the cracks?
Now, that's a great question, and there are two ways that we can go about that. One is we're working through transition initiatives. A lot of the good government organizations around town are in the process of putting together management agendas and technology agendas for the next administration, whoever wins, to consider. These are bipartisan or nonpartisan groups, and we're deeply involved with those groups in building support for continuing shared services. But the other and more lasting way to do this is to advocate legislation, and that's why the Shared Services Leadership Coalition was founded, because we think it's important that these changes be institutionalized in law so they have staying power to bridge one administration after another.
John Marshall, founder and CEO of the Shared Services Leadership Coalition. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Morris.
And we'll turn from management to final matters straight ahead. In August of 2012, Army Captain Florent Groberg nearly lost his leg, shielding his security detail from a suicide bomber in Afghanistan. This week, he became the nation's newest Medal of Honor recipient during an emotional ceremony at the White House. Megan Hughes has more.
As Captain Florent Groberg received the Medal of Honor, the 32-year-old who friends call Flo had tears in his eyes.
Flo says that day was the worst day of his life. And that is the stark reality behind these Medal of Honor ceremonies.
For Groberg, that day was August 8, 2012, in Kunar Province, Afghanistan. He was leading a security detail escorting brigade commanders and an Afghan general when he noticed a suspicious man walking backward. The former University of Maryland track star acted quickly.
Flo sprinted toward him. He noticed an object under the man's clothing, a bomb.
Groberg and another soldier pushed the man away and to the ground where the bomb detonated. The action caused another suicide bomber's weapon to detonate prematurely.
My job was simple: protect the principals, no matter the outcome.
Groberg's leg was severely injured, and 4 of his fellow soldiers died, though more would have been killed if Groberg had not acted.
He showed his guts. He showed his training. That's an American we can all be grateful for.
But it seemed it was the faces in the audience more than the president's words that moved him.
I got 4 families that don't have a father, a son, a brother, a husband.
After the ceremony, in appropriately gloomy weather, he paid tribute.
This medal belongs to the true heroes, Command Sergeant Major Griffin, Major Gray, Major Kennedy, and Reggie Abdel Fattah, who made the ultimate sacrifice.
And that's the latest from Washington. Thanks for being with us. I'm Morris Jones. We know your week is filled with other matters. Save this half hour for us.